But right now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to give an enormous Robeson County welcome to Don Trump Jr. Come on.
What's going on, guys? Well, man, it's good to be back here in Robeson County. If I was Joe Biden, I'd say it's great to be back here in Alaska. No, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's not a joke. It's actually true, right? But no, it's great to be here in Lumbee country. I've already been here a couple of times, having a good time back. As some of my friends from the state know, I spent a lot of time with sort of my recreational pursuits here in North Carolina that I don't necessarily get to do so much of in the People's Republic of New York. Although with your governor, I guess you guys are turning that way pretty quickly, aren't you? Yeah. So I was very clear to make sure I took the mask off once I got the mic and actually started speaking, because I didn't want to get thrown in the gulags. But no, thank you guys so much for coming out. It's awesome. Congressman Bishop, thank you for all that you're doing, that you're fighting for your people, that you understand what's actually going on, that you're bringing some sense to Washington, D.C. You're bringing actual business experience, not talk. Because we hear a lot of talk, don't we, guys? We've certainly grown accustomed to talk, right? We see a little bit too much of it. For example, Joe Biden, he's been talking for 47 years, right? Oh, he'll tell you whatever you want to hear, whatever you want to hear to get elected, right? Because, you know, Joe Biden was really pro-life until he was for late-term abortion, right? Joe Biden was going to fix racial issues in this country. Right? He's saying that now. Why didn't he do it already? No, seriously. He was a senator for 38 years. A bigger platform that he had was as vice president to the first African-American president. So if you really cared about the issue, and it wasn't just all talk, why didn't you maybe use that platform to actually do something, right? Yeah, he has amnesia, or he's just full of it, right? It's different. When you're a Democrat, you can get away with that because no one's going to question it, just like they don't question his son taking $3.5 million from a Putin associate in Russia. Money linked to human trafficking and prostitution rings in Eastern Europe and Russia, right? You think? Think of little Hunter. Had a last name like Trump, you think? You think you'd hear about it? You'd probably hear about it, right? As you're checking out in the supermarket, it'd be on the cover of every magazine, every newspaper, every tabloid in America. But when he does it, nothing, right? That's actual Russia collusion, not the nonsense they've been peddling for 4 years, right? But now that it's against the Democrats, you won't hear about it anymore. It just magically goes away. Just like Hunter Biden's $1.5 billion, with a B, from the Chinese government investing in him. Investing in him. You think that has anything to do with why Joe Biden's spent 50 years shipping jobs to China? Pushing for China's permanent status in the World Trade Organization, something that, by the way, has not been good for farmers. It's been a disaster, right? You think maybe it has something to do with that? Joe Biden spent 50 years pushing TPP, NAFTA, China, but he's going to do it different now. He's going to fight for Americans now. Guess what, guys? I don't know about you, but after half a century, you're not going to change. You're not going to start. But again, he'll tell you what you want to hear. You know, you think it's a coincidence that magically, last week, a couple days ago, now he's going to push for Lumbee recognition. No, seriously. I mean, it was obviously a big issue for him, right? It came out 3 weeks before an election. Who else made that promise? Obama. Obama made that promise. What happened with that? Because I heard about it for 8 years from my friend. It didn't happen. Because there's no consequence if you make a promise and you're them and you don't deliver. So that promise means nothing. It's a way to try to swing a vote to get otherwise bad policies. And I understand it. That's politics, but we're not politicians. So because of my trips to Robeson County and over the last couple months, I've actually spoken to the White House about it. They're aware of the issue. They're going to look at it. I'm not going to make you a false promise like Biden will, because that's not who I am. But I will tell you that they are going to look at it seriously. I spoke today with the chief of staff about it, and I understand he's from a different part of the state, and I understand those politics are often different. But he said his job is to do and to support the president, not that. The American people. So you guys can take that to the bank, because that actually means something. When I say they're going to actually look at it and take it seriously, not just talk about it, not make a false promise like they did since, what was it, 2008, right? It's a long time to do nothing. Now, magically, 24 days before an election, it's an issue again, right? Joe Biden made a bunch of promises. I listed a few. He also talked about how he's going to fix our healthcare system. What Obamacare do? It jacked up your premiums, raised your deductibles. Basically, it was a wonderful plan if you were hit by a bus going 100 miles an hour and managed to live. Right? Because then maybe you'd at least burn off your deductible. Sir, you know what I'm talking about. You're laughing. It'd be funny if it wasn't true. But it's true. You know, so that's their fix. They don't talk about it, that it jacked up premiums by hundreds of % in some cases. That the average American couldn't afford their health insurance. That the average American's health insurance premium was higher than their mortgage payment. That was one hell of a promise, not a good one.
That's my retirement money.
That's right. So, you know, speaking of retirement money, even in the midst of a pandemic, how's your 401k doing? Right? Think about it this way. Unemployment right now, in the middle of a global pandemic, is about tied with the Obama-Biden 8-year average. No. Think about that. In the middle of a pandemic, right? Now, you saw this probably a couple weeks ago. They're talking about the economic numbers, and you see the media. Ugh. You know, the numbers, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. They're upset that the economy is doing well. They're upset that you're making that V-shaped recovery my father said would happen. He probably knows a little bit about this stuff because he's actually a businessman, not just a talker, not a politician, right? So they're upset that they're a V-shaped recovery. That the employment numbers are as good, if not better, and getting better than what Obama and Biden averaged for 8 years during their supposed incredible economy, right? I keep hearing about incredible. I don't remember people feeling that way on the ground. The media was more than happy to tell you that it was incredible. Nothing actually backed that up. So think about that. The numbers are good. Even the media admits that. Unemployment's on par. What's missing? How about California? How about New York? How about Michigan? How about major parts of Pennsylvania and even North Carolina that are not even fully participating in the economy yet because of lockdowns?
No more!
Think about that though, right? So the numbers are pretty good, and what? About 25% of the country isn't even in the game fully right now. That's because Donald Trump created something unique. That's because he created something special. When Donald Trump, in 2016, came to places like this and went all over the country, he said he's going to bring back jobs. He's going to grow the economy. He's going to drop unemployment. Remember what Obama said? There's no magic wand for that, Donald. This is the best we can possibly do. But it turns out it wasn't. Promises made, promises kept. Right? The guy that built the strongest economy America has ever known is the guy that can do it again. The guy that held China accountable and got a trade deal done with them rather than boost them for 50 years like Joe Biden is the guy that can hold them accountable after this disaster that they brought to the world. It's not rocket science, guys. It wasn't Obama's fault that he couldn't grow the economy. It wasn't. It was our fault for thinking that a good-looking guy with a good line of crap, with no actual experience doing anything remotely like that, could do it. You can say it. Talk is cheap, folks. You guys know that better than anyone. You've been hearing it from politicians for decades. Who actually took on those battles? Who actually won them? More importantly, Donald Trump. It's, again, why you have the USMCA replacing Joe Biden's failed NAFTA plan. That's brought jobs back to America. That's brought prosperity back to America. It was so good that Nancy Pelosi sat on it for a year, right? Because she didn't want to give Trump a win. That's the Democrat Party. They would rather have Americans suffer to be able to push their political narrative than to do what's right for their constituents and fight back. No more. Enough. We've been there. Guess what, boys and girls? If Joe Biden could have fixed anything, he would have done it by now. Right? You know, if someone's working on your farm, working on that tractor, and they take 47 years to fix it and it's still not working, no, seriously, you're going to have them keep going, or you're going to bring in someone else that maybe knows what the hell they're doing. I have a feeling that common sense people would bring someone back in, but again, you don't get to hear about Joe Biden's failures. I mean, a half a century is a long time. Do me a favor, this was a historically Democrat district. You guys should know pretty well. Name a Joe Biden accomplishment. I'll give you the mic. No, seriously, name one. That's not an accomplishment, sir. That was disgusting. But yes, thank you. There are none. There are none. He shipped our jobs to China. He shipped your American dream to China. Crime bill, that wasn't a good one. That put people away. By the way, speaking of which, right, he said he was going to fix those things. How come it was Donald Trump that undid that? That wasn't Republican Party platform issues, right? Oh, I get to hear that nonsense every day. Joe Biden's going to fix racial tension. It's like, hey, man, like I said, you had every opportunity. It was Donald Trump that did prison reform. It was Donald Trump that did the First Step Act. It was Donald Trump that did opportunity zones. Guess what, guys? Those aren't things that are on the Republican Party ticket. You've never seen that in the list of GOP things prior to Donald Trump doing it. You know why he did it? Because it was the right thing to do. It goes beyond politics. You love everybody? See, I hate everyone equally. That's what politics does to you, right? I'm just kidding. He does. Listen, like I said, guys, you have to love people to want to get in this game, to want to be in politics as a billionaire. All right, in all fairness, right? He didn't need this job. So he needed this job like a hole in the head. And more importantly, he knew how bad it would be. The last thing my father said to me when we went down in the elevator, before he did sort of the infamous escalator ride. You guys remember that, right? He's down there with Melania doing the escalator ride. He looks at me, we're in the elevator as a family, and he goes, and now we find out who our real friends are. Truer words have probably never been spoken, right? It shows a couple things. He understands how the real world works. He understands all those people in Hollywood that used to kiss his butt would be gone the second you put a little R next to your name, right? Even if R also stands for results, in the case of Donald Trump, right? Well, I mean, in all fairness, we're getting out of the endless wars that our own generals can't tell us why we're in. Hint, it's because they want a board seat at Raytheon and Boeing. That's why we're there. Okay, we're ordering missiles and staying in wars so they can get rich once they retire. That's why we're there. It's also why we're getting peace deals done in the Middle East rather than using the same failed approach over and over and expecting a different result. So Donald Trump knew all that. That was apparent in what he said to me. Now we find out who our real friends are. But more importantly, what it shows us is he knew what was going to happen and he did it anyway. Isn't that better? When you know they're going to try to destroy you, when you know you're going to go after your family, when they know, hey, They spent 3 years trying to put me in jail for allegedly doing all of the things that Hunter Biden is actually doing. I mean, think about it. Their dream was for me to have done a single thing like Hunter Biden. I did 30 hours of testimony before the House and Senate. Not for anything wrong, but because if you ask someone the same question for 30 hours, maybe they'll give you a wrong answer. Maybe they'll sneeze in the midst of a sentence and say, that was not what you said last time, we got you. I don't have the benefits of the McCabe's and the Brennans and those guys that lied before Congress. I wouldn't get a pass. I'd be doing this beautiful talk from a payphone feeding quarters from Rikers Island, prison.
Like Hillary's emails.
That's what, yeah, now 4 years later, oh, now they found some of them. Oh, amazing. Right, just like it's amazing. How many of you guys, show of hands, and this is always risky when you do this in a crowd, right? How many of you have entered the wrong password in your phone so many times that it deleted your phone? All right, well, there's one person, ma'am. Okay, fine. Do you think that 27 FBI agents could do that?
No.
Magically, once the investigation turns and they're actually looking at them, you think that's like a statistical anomaly like you could never imagine anywhere else ever? Or are they just crooks and lying? Because I have a feeling they're crooks and they're lying. Now that they've been caught, now that we know it's them, now that everything they accused us of doing was actually done by them, and they all knew it. The FBI, the CIA, Obama, Biden. Biden unmasked me 8 days before the inauguration. What could possibly be the motive for that? I wonder. You think it's politics? When it's him doing it, and his family, no problem. I want that gig. In my next life, I want to come back as a Democrat. Okay? I'm just kidding. No one wants to come back as a Democrat. But guys, that's why we need your support, okay? You've seen the bias. You've seen the nonsense. You've seen what we are up against, right? It's not just Republican versus Democrat. It's Republican conservative values versus Democrat versus 99% of the mainstream media versus social media and the tech censorship versus big tech and the search engines. You know how hard it is to get our message out? People ask, Don, how is it that you're doing 26 stops this week? I go, I don't have a choice. I'm not like Joe Biden. I can't hide in my basement and someone campaign for me.
Yeah.
I gotta get out there and speak to the people directly. No one's gonna talk about our accomplishments, like I said. We got 3 peace deals done in the Middle East. Really 2 in the Middle East and 1 a little bit north, but let's call them the same thing, right? I have to put that disclaimer in it or the fake news will say that I'm lying. But think about it. How much did you hear about that? Like almost nothing? For our entire lives, and I'm older than I used to be by quite a lot. I used to be the young guy in the room, not so much anymore. But I'm 42, and I've been hearing about Middle East peace for that entire time. It's like this magical unicorn that we hear about in our dreams and you don't actually ever see, you don't actually accomplish anything. Donald Trump did 2 deals, and another one further north in Kosovo. Different region, same problem. And it's as though they didn't happen. The holy grail of geopolitical politics happens 3 times in a 1-month period, and they don't do anything about it. The day that was announced was the day my father spoke at the RNC. And my sister introduced him. She gave a nice speech, and he talked a little story about her son. You remember this one, the Lego White House that her 3-year-old son built, right? She told this story. It was just a nice little anecdote in her speech, no big deal. The media took it. Did he do it by himself? Was he assisted? I hate that kid, you know? I mean, you could hear the hate in their voice. They spent more time fact-checking a story about a 3-year-old, canceling a 3-year-old, than they did about Middle East peace. Right? Did he do it by himself? I don't know. He's 3. He probably had some help. Like, does it matter? But you know what? You know, I thought it was enough when they tried to do what they did to Brett Kavanaugh. A good and decent man, right? Yeah, he was obviously a gang rapist, right? I mean, obviously. You know, he's on the Circuit Court of Appeals for a decade. Like, no one brought it up before. It magically happened then. It wasn't politics. Right? We'll ruin his life. We'll ruin his career. We'll ruin his family. Who cares? I thought that was bad. But maybe I attributed it just to politics. Then they did it to a 16-year-old kid named Nick Sandman. You remember that, right? Yeah, I do too. What was his crime? Christian, conservative, Trump supporter, pro-lifer from the South? Wearing a MAGA hat. That was the real crime. Wearing a MAGA hat. Hoo-hoo, let's ruin his life! Let's destroy him. That's what the Democrats and their buddies in the media, they're really one and the same at this point. Right? Ooh, let's end his life. Let's do it now. For those reasons. If they do it to him, if they do it to Brett Kavanaugh, if they'll do it to a 3-year-old, who won't they do it to?
No more.
Who won't they do it to? You think anyone's immune? If you get on the wrong side of them, you think anyone's immune? Luckily, he fought back. That's why he's the highest paid person at CNN right now. Right? So ruining his life wasn't enough. They then got to go cancel a 3-year-old. That is what we are up against, folks. 50 years, 47 to be exact, of lies, nonsense, corruption, enriching his family. That's Joe Biden. He'll make you every promise he could ever tell you. He'll tell you what you want to hear. That's what he does. He has a long history of that, but as we examined, you can't name a single accomplishment. But when you're up against what we're up against, we need you guys to be there. We need you speaking to your friends. We need you reaching out. We need you calling them, bringing them to vote, making sure everyone's registered. The deadline hasn't already passed in North Carolina. We need you there. We don't have a multi-billion-dollar media complex that will boost us. Social media companies, they don't censor our opponents, they censor us. If you're Christian conservative or if you're a Second Amendment fan, you've seen it with your own eyes, I'm sure.
But you have our prayer.
It's 30 days of Facebook jail. Don't worry, they do it to me every day. I've been canceled so many times now, it almost doesn't bother me anymore. It's actually quite refreshing. I recommend you trying it. The problem is these days you get canceled for actually speaking the truth, right? You saw Twitter did this today. They're going to have things, before you retweet something, they're going to have someone look at it to make sure that it lines up. Well, who are the fact checkers? The same people that lie about fact checking? Right? The leftists that all feel the same way? Yeah, that's not going to create disinformation. Look at what they did to me a couple weeks ago. I got a post taken off of Instagram. Then I put up a funny meme. It was Chris Farley, you know, from the Saturday Night Live thing, talking to Kamala Harris. Remember the time you called Joe Biden a rapist? Right? And someone, a sexual assault, and a racist, and all of this stuff, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? No, she never called him a racist. I go, wait a minute. Why? Well, she didn't use the word racist. I go, but wait a second. You mean when she gave that speech at the debate, right? When she went on for minutes about his policies on busing. The fact that he spoke it, I don't think there's a segregationist he wasn't best friends with. I was that little girl. You remember the speech, sir, right? What do you think she was saying? Yeah, I think so too. It also said you should believe his accusers in terms of the sexual assault allegations, right? I mean, an intern with 20 years of backup, court documents, TV stuff, that magically goes away. Every whack job that's ever said a thing about my father gets like Michael Avenatti, right? You know, oh, he's a hopeful for president. He'll say something bad about Trump. Let's just elevate a guy that looks like he stole millions of dollars from paraplegics. Like, that was the Democrat hopeful for 2020. So, I hate to sort of belabor that point, but you have to understand that is what we are up against, guys. It's not a fair fight, and so we need you guys in it. And my father, I promise you, he's going to fight harder than anyone ever will. Frankly, he's the only guy that's actually been fighting, and I think Mike Pence highlighted that phenomenally in the debate the other night when he destroyed Kamala Harris. She talked about a trade war. He goes, trade war? Joe Biden never even fought the war. He just gave up. On day one, he did more than give up, because giving up just says you're not going to do anything. He actually spent 5 decades boosting them. You won't hear that. You don't hear that in the commentary afterwards, which is why we do have to be on the ground. But we need you to help get that message out there, okay? We need you to call your friends. We need you to get motivated. You see what they're doing to our freedoms, to our speech, to our Second Amendment. They don't even have to answer a major question like, will you pack the courts? I mean, think about that, right? I can't wait to see what they accuse Amy Coney Barrett of. I'm sure, they'll call her Hitler. They'll say she's worse than all of them. That's inevitable almost, right? They can't help themselves. But you're 100% right. That's why we need you out there. So please get out there, stay involved. We need your help in North Carolina. We did it last time. We're going to do it again. And most importantly, hey, my father came in as an outsider. Now he's familiar with the game. Another 4 more years, he can do 10x. By the way, we get guys like Dan Bishop in there, people who are willing to actually fight with us, because we can't just win the presidency. We need the Senate. Right? We need the Senate. Those guys vote with my father on those policies. We need the House. So we need guys like Dan Bishop that'll fight. We had that once before. We had it in 16, but it was led by Paul Ryan, which is basically being led by a Democrat, right? Too weak to fight, unwilling, worried that some guy in D.C. who doesn't know anything about what's going on locally anywhere else other than the D.C. bubble would write a bad article about him. So we had it, and those guys blew it because they weren't willing to engage. But Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is a fighter. We may not always like it, but guess what? It's why we're getting results. Being the nice guy. I see the commercials are like, he's just a nice guy. That's wonderful, but how's that going to be against Putin? How's that going to be against Xi? I mean, it's nice to be, a nice guy, but his track record, maybe he was a nice guy forever because he hasn't got anything done. I want the guy that's going to engage. I want the guy that's going to fight. I want the guy that actually knows how to. And we'll get it done. And with you, we will all get it done. And we will make America great again, okay? Thank you, guys. Thank you, Robson County. Great to be back here. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Get your friends out there.